It's Miller time in the central United States, which can open up for some great surface water fishing. As you can see, this fly doesn't take very many materials, mainly just white thread, a number size 8 hook, and some deer or antelope hair. So we're going to start off with a size 8 hook, and it can either be a dry fly or a wet fly hook. It doesn't matter because you're going to use the deer hair and the antelope hair, and so that really gives it a lot of buoyancy. I've started by starting my thread about 1/8 of an inch behind the eye of the hook and working back till when you let the thread hang, it's in between the point and the barb of the hook. I've clipped a bunch of fine deer hair for the tail, and you can see it's smaller than a pencil, and to this I'm going to have to straighten the edges and comb out the underfur. So I've straightened the tips of the hair by using my hair stacker, and then I'll pull this out and kind of pull some of the unwanted stuff out, and then I'm going to measure where I want it on the hook, and that looks about right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take two loose around it, and then start while I'm holding the rear or the tips of the deer, I'm going to tie this portion down. And as you can see, the hair on the tail did not flare. When I have the hair, excess hair clipped off, now I'll take my thread and flatten this down to the shank of the hook. And then I'll add a couple drops of either head cement or super glue. Now comes the fun part of this fly, and that's spinning the either deer hair or antelope hair, whichever you prefer to use, and I'll clip a bunch about the diameter of a pencil, and I'll bring my thread back to where I tied the tail in, and then I'm going to take one, then two loose wraps, and I'm going to pull straight down and let it spin around the hook, just like that. And then I'm going to comb this back with my fingers and work my thread forward. I've cut another clump of antelope hair, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make one, two loops around it, pull straight down, and then let it spin around the hook. When I have 2 or 3 clumps of antelope hair on, I'm going to take my hair stacker, which I use an old Bic ink pen, and I just push that on and pack it tight. And then I'm going to work my thread up to the front of the hair and do the same thing over again. So I'm going to make another clump. Now remember, you don't want to get too big of a clump because that makes it difficult to work with. I'm going to do the same thing. One, two, let it spin around, the hook, and then I'm going to take my hair stacker and push that back, just like that. So your fly's kind of looking like this so far. When I reach this point, after 2 or 3 more bunches of spinning it and packing it, I'm going to take my half hitch tool and secure this thread off and go ahead and trim it off. So this is what it should look like right now. Now the advantage behind using the antelope is it's a different texture than your deer hair tail, so it makes it easier to trim. So the way I like to trim this is I'll take a double-edged razor blade and I'll just start and just trim the hair off. Spin my hook around. So I have kind of a square piece of antelope hair. So after trimming some more with the razor blade and then my fine point scissors, I have a body that looks kind of carrot shaped. I trim it flat on the bottom so it lays flat on the water, and then round it on the sides and the top, like that. Now what I like to do is I like to change my thread now, and I use a thinner, like a 140 denier gray, and I'll bring it back into the thorax region, and you can see as you tie this on, it sinks into that antelope hair really nice. So I went back to my fine deer hair and I evened the tips out on them. And now I'm going to lay this on top of my body, the length I want that wing. And you kind of want it to where it's at the length of the tail. Hold that down with your fingers. And break your thread. So I'm going to start that all over again. I wish I could tell you I did that on purpose as an educational move, but you all know I would be lying. And so I'm just going to start over, put my thread through the body again, and then take my wing material, lay it on top of the fly, on top of the body, where I want it. Kind of get it centered in the middle of the fly body, and then I'm going to make a couple wraps around it while holding the wing and pull that tight, just like that. And then I'm just going to take this and push it back and bring my thread back and then take a half hitch tool and tie that off. Just like that. And then you can go ahead and clip your thread and trim your head off. And this is your finished miller moth. The way I like to fish it is I'll cast it out, let it set, just kind of like I like to fish my poppers. Let it set till all the rings disappear, and then start just very lightly twitching it. This pattern is good in the spring and also in the fall again when the millers return from the mountains to lay their eggs.